Welcome back, everybody. It's Empress. I am back. I know you guys haven't seen this face in a minute. I've had so many people asking me, when are you gonna do another video? What's going on? So much stuff was going on, but I'm not gonna let it stop me. I'm here. I'm doing videos again, and I'm so excited. With that being said, I'm getting ready to give y'all an amazing review of an amazing new movie called Fatherhood, which just aired on Netflix on the 18th of June. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's an amazing movie. It is based off the story Two Kisses for Maddie, which is a memoir written by Matthew Lodgeland. And this movie is a heavy hitter. We have a heavy hitting cast. The cast goes from Kevin Hart, who plays Matthew Lodgeland, Deborah Ayorinde, who is Liz, played by Deborah Ayorinde. And we have DeWanda Wise. We have Melody Hurd, which is playing the little girl Maddie. Alfre Woodard, which is playing the maternal grandmother. We also have Lil Rel, who is one of Matthew's good friends. Anthony Carrigan, which is another one of his good friends. And the list just goes on and on. And I'm excited about the cast they chose. And whoever the casting director is, kudos to you, because these people together this cast did an amazing job. They meshed together and they really brought this movie to life. Now the movie is essentially about, and whoa, pause. Before I get into what the movie is about, it's Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to all the amazing fathers out there. I'm doing a review on the movie Fatherhood, and I didn't say happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all of you amazing, amazing men in our kids' lives. The amazing men that raised us, uncles, grandparents, whomever. Thank you to you guys. You guys are amazing. You guys do not get the shout outs and kudos that you guys so greatly deserve. And I really want to say happy Father's Day to all of y'all. So happy Father's Day to y'all. You guys are amazing. Sometimes you are not only raising your own kids, but sometimes the community kids or your nieces, your nephews, whatever. So shout out to you all. But getting back into the movie, this movie is essentially about a new father who has just lost his wife due to childbirth, and now he has to raise his child by himself. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he's going to be great. He doesn't know how his life is going to work. And so we see the progression of from when his child is a baby and an infant to as she's roughly about 10 years old. And it's just a beautiful story. And the story actually, like I said, it's a real story by Matthew Lodgeland, and it's his life. And I want to believe it. If I remember correctly, I did a little research on it. At this time, he had a blog, and his blog started getting some traction from people like Oprah and things of that nature, and he started to get notoriety. And then he decided, I'm gonna write a story about it as well. But to really delve into the story, there's a couple of different things that I just really want to hone in on. And the first thing is childbirth. So in the beginning of the movie, him and Matthew and his wife Liz are finding out that Liz has a couple of complications, and she has to deliver earlier than she would like, and it has to be a cesarean. The baby was full term, I believe, but it was still not when she wanted to deliver. That's what I mean by earlier. And for those of you that don't know or do know, I am a birth doula, so this part of the movie was extremely sentimental to me, and because it's one of the reasons why I became a doula. And so they're telling her, you know what, you have to deliver tonight, which a lot of times these doctors, if they tell you some of these things, And I'm not going to get into that, but I will say this. If it is a real emergency C-section, they will not schedule it. If it's an emergency, you need to be going into the back right now. So for them to say it has to be done tonight, in my opinion, it's not so much of an emergency. But to each his own, neither here nor there, it is what it is. But she goes, they set up to get ready to deliver. Cool, everything goes great with the delivery. And they have this new bundle of joy. They named the bundle of joy Maddie. Well, the next day, they are going to go see Maddie in the nursery. You know, Liz's parents have come in town to see her. They're so excited. They came from Minnesota because that's where Liz and Matthew are from. They're from Minnesota. They come in town to see her. They're getting ready to go, and when Liz gets up, she collapses because she had an embolism, a pulmonary embolism, I believe, and that's where you have a clot, and the clot traveled up into her lungs. So, and this is where a doula comes into play, and my doula experience comes into play. Nobody in that hospital, the staff, the people that were waiting or should have been waiting hand on foot for Liz, did their due diligence, checking for clots, making sure that she was okay, making sure, you know, blood was flowing properly, making sure she was using the bathroom properly, especially with having a cesarean. They didn't do their due diligence, so then she ended up passing. And what was bothersome is the hospital staff pushed Matthew out, so he wasn't able to see everything, he wasn't able to be there. And so in her final moments, he wasn't there. And it was very hurtful, it was very disheartening. And it's only because a lot of times we see that our women, and granted the story is based off a white male and the cast was a predominantly black cast, but we see in our black communities the alarming rate at which our women are dying from childbirth. It's too high compared to the other races, okay? Compared to the other races, we are dying more. And it puts fear in the hearts of our mothers, and then that fear is making them not want to have kids, or that fear, they're taking that fear into their delivery, and then they're stressed and they're fearful, and that's just not okay. So that's where a doula comes into play to eliminate those, not eliminate those numbers, but to bring those numbers down, because we are doing our due diligence. We are making sure that, you know, our clients are walking, or the nurses are making sure that they're pushing on our women to make sure they're not clotting, making sure that there's no clots in their uterus. I mean, we don't do that, but we, you know, talk to the nurses and say, hey, is this going on? Are you guys going to do this? Or at least talk to our clients to talk to the nurses, because some nursing staff doesn't always want to talk to us. But, you know, we are still making sure these questions are going to be asked. Or we would have, in the instance with Matthew and Liz, we would have asked Matthew to say, hey, go ask that nurse. She hasn't had, you know, her checks. I haven't seen them try to check for clots. Are they going to do that? Ask them, are they going to do that? Because if that would have been checked, she would have still been alive. Possibly. You know, could have been some other things going on as well. But it's a shame that even after seeing this movie, people are fearful of childbirth. When, yes, childbirth is a very, very tumultuous activity. Your body is going through a lot. But at the same time, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful moment. And we move from childbirth to now talking about, okay, grief. Now I have to worry about, okay, how am I going to mourn the loss of my wife, my best friend, the person who I expected to raise my child with, to also making sure that I'm giving my child that love and that happiness, and so that my child sees all these amazing things. And that grief can then turn into postpartum depression, because at one point in the movie, you know, Matthew was he was at his wit's end, because Maddie, which is the baby that the name that they gave the little baby, Maddie was crying constantly crying, and he didn't know what to do. And the people that were around him were the men, and I believe that he didn't go to, you know, his mother-in-law or his mom, because his mother-in-law, who's played by Alfre Woodard, was just downright disgusting, in my opinion. Instead of cultivating him to be a great father, and knowing that he is grieving and knowing that he is still that child's father, she just made him feel low, made him feel like he couldn't do anything right. She's like, you don't know how to raise a kid. That kid needs to come live with me. She just said everything nasty to him, not knowing that he is still that child's father. No matter how you feel, whether he can raise that child or not, he had a stable home. He never showed any signs of, you know, being abusive or anything of that nature. So he was able to raise that child. But she just talked so bad about him, and I'm thinking, tying it back to grief, she was just grieving the fact that because, you know, he got her pregnant or wherever, now her daughter is now gone, because she mentioned it a lot. She's like, I had plans for my daughter to do this, that, and the other. She went off and married you, and if she wouldn't have done that, she would have said it a lot. So her doing the blame game was, and her grief was being projected onto him, and which was causing him stress and causing him to think less of himself, and for him to have postpartum depression, because men can have that as well. Men can have that as well. And I highly believe that in the times of Maddie being a young baby, that Matthew was depressed, especially in those scenes where he was crying and he didn't know what to do. But luckily his boss allowed, in the movie, his boss allowed him to bring Maddie to work. And it got to the point where he went to a support group, and even the support group would not support him, because they were like, oh, this is a mother's support group. And he was just like, no, it's, the sign says it's for parents. But they wouldn't even support him. And I see that too often, where we think because he's a father, he doesn't know. Well, how will he know if we don't show them? How will he know? How will he help this baby if you don't tell him? And it was disheartening that not only did the support group not support him, but his mother-in-law wouldn't support him. And so I just noticed that he was not able to really grieve. He was not able to really understand his feelings as well as raise his child. Luckily, he had some great friends. He had Lil Rel and Anthony, who, you know, portrayed his friends who were there for him and helped him when he needed help. And as they say, it takes a village, and his village helped him. The other people around, he didn't let those people that were negatively impacting him impact how he raised his child. And after, you know, the time from when Maddie was a baby, it spans, I want to say about 10 years later, maybe 9-10 years later. She's in primary school, and she's having a little bit of rift in school. Maddie's having some troubles in school, just with the fact that not only is Maddie longing for that motherly affection, but she's also getting picked on at school because she's a little bit different. She's raised by men, okay? So she wants to dress like a man. She goes to a Catholic school, and she is wearing pants. That's not okay. And she doesn't want to wear a skirt. So, or she wears boys' underwear. So she's getting picked on, and she's also like going to friends' houses and saying, okay, well, they have a mommy, I don't have a mommy. And we're going back to that grief, okay? Because now we have a little girl who's longing for her mother. She doesn't have that. And so she's trying to find her mother, or find the love of her mother, and you know, where she can. And it kind of pinpointed also that Matthew wasn't talking too much about her too often, because at one point she went to stay with her grandmother and she's like, well, what was mommy like? So she didn't know. And with grieving, sometimes we don't talk about things because they hurt us, because in the movie, when did he have a time to grieve? It went from hospital, funeral, to now I'm raising my child. It was a swift like motion, so he didn't get that opportunity. And so as she got older, they just never talked about it, probably, and that's just me picking up from the movie, that they just never talked about it. And now that she's older, his friends are trying to set him up with somebody. Here comes DeWanda Wise, whose name is, funny enough, Liz. So, they set him up and he's meeting new people, and he's just like, I don't know if I'm ready, because he is realizing like, hey, I don't know if I'm ready today. I don't know if I'm a great father, because he goes to stay with his in-laws, and his in-law, who's played by Alfre, is still demeaning him. And this is years later. The child is good. The child is alive. The child is healthy. I even think they said at one point in the movie at the pediatric appointment, like, she's good, she's okay. And what I loved, and I did point this out, the doctor asked, well, how are you doing? Are you getting sleep? Things that your professionals should ask to make sure that your postpartum is good. But he wanted to be that strong macho man because he's with his mother-in-law, who talks about him like a dog. So he has to show that he's a hard body, but he wasn't. And so, he's now at their house visiting for a spell, and she's still dogging him out, talking about him, and he essentially breaks down and is like, maybe I'm not a great father. And he leaves his baby. He's like, you're gonna stay with grandma for a little bit, because the grandmother had now changed her room from Liz's room, which is Maddie's mom, to now be in a room for Maddie, because she always wanted Maddie to come live with her. And so he leaves her there and goes back home, and now he's hurting, because he didn't really want to leave his baby, but he's thinking, let me not be selfish, let me give her what she needs. She needs that two-parent household, she needs that motherly affection. And then he eventually goes back and he gets his baby, and he's like, no, I'm a damn good father, and I won't let anybody tell me otherwise. I'm about to go get my kid. And he did, and I love that movie. I love that part of the movie. And what I also love, they showed in the movie where, he made his mistake with his newfound girlfriend, which is played by DeWanda Wise, and he went back and apologized. And what I also loved is that when he waited to introduce Maddie to her, and when he did, Maddie was just so enamored by her. And it's just like, as a single parent, you want whoever you're dating to gravitate to your kid. You want your kid to gravitate towards them, because if y'all don't like each other, we can't date, essentially, right? And the movie ends where they're all three, they're together, and it's just a beautiful ending, and I'm happy about the ending. And the ending is similar to his life, because he ended up marrying that other Liz, and it was just beautiful to see. And I think they married 10 years later. If you actually look up Matthew Logelin, Logelin, you'll kind of see about his life. But I really enjoyed this movie. I really think that this is a movie that is great for families to watch together. It shows so many different things, and it makes you really think. It makes you really, really, really think. And I do hope that this continues to bring out the conversation of how to properly take care of our mothers when they're going into childbirth, so that we don't continue to have this issue. And I want to also say to women, don't be afraid to give birth. Don't be afraid of the things that will happen, because if you have a great team and support system around you, you will be okay. And that's just my doula spiel. But at the same time, also when it comes to grief, grieve. Okay, grieve, let it out. Don't try to be hard body, whether you're male, female, whatever. Don't try to be that hard body. You just grieve, okay? Because death is very hard. Even though for people who are, say, spiritual and they know that their person's being reincarnated, or that was just their physical vessel and their spirit is still out, it's still hard. Matthew's life is a tale that so many people oftentimes see. Luckily enough for him, he used his writing as an outlet, and that outlet provided fame for him. Now in the movie, it was a little bit different than his real life, because in his real life, he actually moved he moved out of the country, I think when Maddie was a year old, and wrote the story. He still ended up coming back to state, meeting up with Liz and marrying her. So like I said, if you guys have not seen the movie, please go see it. It's an amazing movie. And I just really hope this brings out some more conversations, and not even just conversations, because we've had the conversations. I really hope this brings about change for childbirth, brings about change for grief, and brings about change for how we treat our men and how we love on our men and help our men be better. So with that, I am saying peace to y'all. I love y'all. Thank you for tuning in with me and rocking with me, and I'll see y'all later. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know I've been on hiatus, but still don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on social media.